save all of the children. Woo, woo. Good morning, y'all. Good afternoon. Good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Mental House. I am your host. Whatever side of the diaspora you on, this is Khadija, and I want to welcome you because I want to talk about a dysfunctional story today that I'm sure a lot of you have had an experience with, and I just can't wait to get it out. So whatever side of the diaspora that you're on, I want to welcome you. This is the place, as you guys know, that we dump all the craziness. And some of us lives are so crazy that we just continue to go on and on and on without having a place to dump it. And as you know, this is the Dumping Mental House. And I want to talk today about a story. And this is pretty much how I spent my weekend dealing with dysfunction. And this is, well, as you all know, I've told you over the years that my mother has been foster parent to maybe over 30 or 40 children, adopted and otherwise. And so some of her, throughout the years, she's been responsible, I would say. Kind of reminds you of a Mia Farrow, Josephine Baker type. Anyway, with that being said, one of the girls that were in question was a teenage parent, and she got pregnant not once but twice by a man in his 20s. And there was a child born, of course, and my mother, who kept this little boy while the mother continued to go to school, has got a real heavy attachment to him, right? Because she pretty much raised him. And the little boy is he's not even past 6-7 years old. He's about 5 or 6. Okay. So we're going to make a long story short. So because she's been keeping him so much, this young lady who has a history of abuse herself, who hasn't had a lot of those issues addressed, really sees my mother as an enabler or somebody that she can just use and abuse. Okay? Pretty much. So she has this child, and she leaves the child with my mother constantly, who was an elderly woman, but my mother would not stop doing this because this is her supply, of course. Not only that, but she loves doing it. She loves taking care of children. She just loved it. She loves it all the time. So she can drop this child off anytime, day or night, and no matter what we say to our mother in terms of this being a dangerous situation, she doesn't care. Okay, the baby's dad will come and pick the kid up 12 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. He had to do something. He had an emergency come up. And so whenever they do that, my mother is usually there to enable them with this crazy behavior. Okay. So I think when what happened between them at the beginning of the summer, I don't have any first-hand knowledge about that. But what I will say is the little boy was with my mother the whole summer because the mother is homeless. And she has another little boy, and she lets him stay with another relative, maybe her biological mom. I have no idea, but she has 2 little kids. So one of them is very comfortable staying with his grandmother, which he calls it Nana, which is my mom. And he's there, and he loves being there. So there's another aunt, he calls his TT, who paid for him to be in a summer program since he was there all summer long. And remember, this woman brings no food. She brings no clothes. So my mother basically buys him clothes. She has to feed him and these type of things. Okay? Now, never a problem for her. Even on her fixed income, she does it. And every time someone tries to speak rationality in her, because my mother is an emotional reasoner, it's impossible to get her to see the ridiculousness in how she is allowing this girl to not, to treat her, and her not having any healthy boundaries around the situation. And I'm gonna talk about unhealthy emotional reasoners in another segment. But there was an aunt again that paid for him to have the summer program, and he only had 1 week to go, which was this week right here. Okay, so the mother and the dad, who was in his 20s when he impregnated this girl, not once but twice, and if he should have went to jail, if you ask me. They've concocted a plan that she's going to split the check with him, because they only want the kid for the check. And this is what a lot of people are doing. They want the kid just for the check. If it wasn't for the check, they don't give a damn about the kids. They don't care about their emotional development. They don't care about their mental development. I mean, this kid is 6 years old and can barely eat. There's things that he should know that should have been taught that my little grandbaby can do at 2 years old. That, I mean, and it's sad, because even though he spends a lot of time with my mother, he's with his mom the majority of the time. She's just dragging him through all types of drama. Okay, he can tell you about all kinds of alcohol, the name brands, and everything else. And he's a real street smart little kid. And he's, like I said, very young. So to make a long story short, this little kid went to the summer program, and he only had this week to go. And because the TT said, listen, what do you mean you guys are using this kid to talk about how you guys are going to split the money and split the food stamps? And, because now the guy has 5 other kids. He didn't have any kids before he raped, I might as well say sexually molested a teenager. And before he didn't have any children. But after he had the first child, then he went on and made 5 or 6 more. So now he's got a lot of babies, okay? And they worked out a plan that she's going to give him half the money, and he's going to give her half the money and half the food stamps and all this. And he's going to keep the kid and take him to another county, which he was in another county before, and his new girlfriend was beating up the little boy. So the little boy had to come back down. It's just drama after drama after drama. Now, whatever happened in the interim of that, when the TT said she didn't think that was a good idea for her to do that, this girl decided to call the police on them and tell the police that they kidnapped her son. Remind you, the girl dropped the son off probably in June. Probably in June. And he's been there pretty much continuously. Even if he goes with her on the weekend, he comes back to go to that program. Right? So if that wasn't insulting enough, the guy comes by, the dad comes by, and he brings these women, and they're all out there almost midnight, banging on the old lady's door, which is my mother, banging on her door, banging on her window to get this kid out of the house. We want our kid. We want our... One woman who nobody ever even saw before, she was out there as well. We want our kid. We want our... And send him out now. Now remember, it's almost midnight, so everybody's sleeping. But they're banging on the door. So, my mother, of course, woke up and she was a little apprehensive. So she called me on the phone. So I came and I confronted them and asked them, what are you doing here? What's going on here? And we want our nephew. We want our son. I was like, well, why didn't you come by? Why don't you come by in the morning? I said, and I knew the guy, but any of those other people I never even saw before. And there were about 4 or 5 women. But he's such a wimp. And I couldn't believe it. I said, why don't you come by in the morning to get your son? I said, my mother and you guys I thought y'all had a good relationship. Why would you do her like that? And so he felt kind of, funny. But then these girls talked him into banging on the door. Don't listen to her. Bang on the door. Get your son. And so now I got insulted. So I have another brother that was just driving down the street, and I guess something must have told him to come down that way. So he's driving down, and he sees this commotion going on in front of his mother's house. So he pulls his car over, and then now he gets out the car, and he's like, what's going on over here? Well, we want our son out, and blah, 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 blah. And he goes, this time of night? Yeah, he was kidnapped. And I said, listen, he wasn't kidnapped. His mother brought him here. Well, he's no kin to you guys, and yada, yada, yada. And it was really sick because I've never seen these people before in my life other than the dad. And I told the dad, I said, I don't understand. I said, why would you come? He said, well, the mother told me to come and pick him up. I said, the mother told you to pick him up? The mother is the one that dropped him off. He said, yeah, but she told me to pick him up. And so, well, somebody called the police. So now the police came. So when the police began to talk, of course, when they automatically, the police are going to look who's acting a damn fool, who's being retarded in most cases, and who is an emotional reasoner and who has emotional intelligence. This is what I would do when I would go to somebody's house as a health inspector, and I got a person sitting there being totally unreasonable and emotional because they don't like how the law is set up, and emotionally because they don't like it, then emotionally they're going to set up a narrative to fix their situation. You trying to talk and give too much credence to those kind of people because it never ends up good. So this is what happened when the police came. He said, well, I want to talk to this young lady right here. So, and she said, well, she didn't call the police. I called the police and yada, yada, yada. I said, well, I want to speak to the older lady right here. And I want to speak to her and blah, blah, blah. So as that happened, I tried to explain to him what I walked into and what I saw. And that this little kid is in the bed sleep because he has to go to a program in the morning. And I don't know who these people are besides the father. And I wouldn't even give it to him. Give the boy to him at this time of night. And what is wrong with him for coming by at this time of night? Police officer felt the same way. That was number one. Because any sane and rational person know, why would you pick a kid up at this time of night? And then with all this drama. That's just not good. It's not good business. It's not good business for the kid. It doesn't even look good for you just setting up again, dysfunction. That's all it is. So they told their story to the police and said that the mother told them to pick the child up. Well, the mother didn't tell us anything, so we're not thinking that. She just dropped the kid off. All she told us was about the hustle that she had with the food stamps and the check, which I believe she was confronted at that point by her TT, like, if you don't get your act together with this boy, you need to find a house, sit down with your children, and stop trying to make these deals, or I'm going to call it protective services. And I think that's what happened. So I'm thinking maybe that's why she called the police, if I remember correctly. But anyway, to make a long story short, the police said, well, no, I'm not going to give you this young man. You had come back at nighttime, because they checked the records and found out that although he was the father, that she had custody, full custody. And so since she dropped him off, they felt that it would be inappropriate to pick up a kid this time of night and allow them to go. And so the women were still out there very angry. Well, we think he should come with us, and that's not fair, and yada, yada, yada. And you don't know what you're doing. This is the father. So the police, I thought, were very patient with these people. Okay, I thought. And I want to give the police at 5th District a shout out. because it could have got real ugly by the way they were acting. They just was totally out of their minds and disrespectful, calling the police crazy for not removing the child right away. Well, the police didn't think it was appropriate because if they were parents, the first thing a parent that's responsible is going to think, why would I move a damn child out of a house at midnight that's sleeping in the bed and give them to some banshees? I don't care who they are. They're not coming with the right energy and the right spirit, and they could have done this 6, 7, 8 hours ago, right? Okay. But then, lo and behold, they called. I knew something was strange because when I tried to call the mother, her phone had me blocked, and I was like, what is that all about? So what happened was the police called her on a different number. And they put her on speakerphone, and we got a chance to hear what she was saying. And I don't know if she was on drugs or whatever, but she accused my mother and the TT of kidnapping her son. And that she had called the police last week, and she had been calling the police for a while to get her son out of the house, and they won't let the son be released to her. It was the most preposterous thing I ever heard. And so, of course, it made me angry to a degree because I'm saying to myself, my mother's always bringing this craziness on herself, okay, in my opinion. And that's what happens when you just, a high conflict individual. So anyway, what happened was once they heard her on the phone and the police were like, you're calling this woman a liar? You're saying that she kidnapped your son? And so he had to put her on speaker because he wanted my mother to hear how this girl was talking about her, which was not nice. She said, yeah, she tried to kidnap my son. In fact, I've been calling the police for the last week. And the police said, what? You've been calling us for the last week? Well, I'm sure there's a log of that you've been calling us for the last week. And so let me check that. And then that's when she said, well, I think I've been calling about that long. He says, okay, you think you've been calling. He says, so you don't know if you've been calling. They've kidnapped your son for a couple weeks now. You're just now finding a way to get him by sending people to the house at midnight to pick him up. It just doesn't make sense. And so he said, I'm going to have to call the protective services off on you because this situation seems just a little fickle. And she goes, what? Are you crazy? This is crazy. It's insane. I'm sitting there listening going, oh God. Okay, this is my response. I'm thinking, how did my mother get herself in all this craziness, all the time? Okay. That's my thought process. That's all. So, make a long story short, you guys. After I heard that, we all were just taken aback, just hurt our feelings, and it hurt of course it hurt them worse than it hurt me. I was more disgusted with the fact that you did this, and I know this is gonna mean I don't even want to see you anymore. Really, to tell you the truth, I don't even want to see you around here because I know that you've done too much damage and your dysfunction has gotten too out of hand to be putting this on an elderly person. You're not even coming. I don't even want to see you around here anymore. That's my take on the whole thing. And so I think I expressed that to her. I believe I did. But if I didn't, I sure felt it. So, with that being said, the police officer felt so bad. He said, since she said that, I have to give him to his dad. So, of course, they wake the little boy up, and he does, I don't want to go. I don't want to go down there. And that was pretty sad because he did not want to leave. And he had these women out there acting crazy. Then his dad is sitting there, and like the dad is afraid of the women as well. I mean, the kid didn't want to go. He knows that when he goes with his dad, whoever his dad is going with, whoever the flavor of the month is going to beat him up. And then he's going to be fighting with their children. Just a madhouse. No stability. The father and the mother are so dysfunctional. They need some parenting classes, some parenting skills. They need help. They need the protective services called on. So, This little boy had to go. So it was a pretty sad evening. The protective services ended up calling me to validate what the police officer had said, and yada yada yada. So I give him this information. And one thing I told the mother was, or the father, don't come over here ever again. Ever. This is it. You guys are done. Because I've seen you over here bringing this child to my mother. I've seen you talking with my mother. I've seen you telling her thank you and that you appreciate everything. You didn't mean any of that. If you allow somebody to come to her house and perform like this, don't ever come this way again. Because if you do, I'm going to consider it an act of war. And my brother was backing me up. And I had to calm him down because he was very upset. And I was like, this is how this stuff happened. Don't let them, don't. That was another. I had to calm him down. So finally we got these people away from there. We got them away. And we had to deal with the fact that this is what she said about all of us after everything had happened. So I told my mother, I said, now, she's going to call you within the next 2 weeks. No, I said next 2 months. Trust me, within 2 months, you're going to hear from her again. Because you're the only person that has been a support system for her, who've set up all kinds of unhealthy boundaries. So she doesn't know. You don't have any boundaries. So she's going to call again, and she's going to act like nothing happened, because this is the pattern. This is how y'all interact with one another. So this is what's going to happen. And I said, except the only thing this time is it's not going to happen. And I don't want to sound like I'm trying to overstep what you think, but this is what it is. And this is what's going to happen. Because she can no longer be trusted around here. Well, I understand that because I don't want her anywhere around here. And I'm so hurt by what she did. And she was upset that the little boy had to leave. And the way he said, I don't want to leave my nana. Flash forward 2 days later, today. The mother is put in jail. The protective services called and asked will we keep her little boy. Not the one that went with his father. She has another little boy. And so they called and asked. They called my phone too. I don't know how. So obviously she took my phone off a block to ask them to ask me to keep him. And they asked my mother to keep the little boy. The answer was unequivocally no. I didn't get a chance to speak to the person. But fortunately for my mother, she did say no. And because she knows that if she didn't, then we were going to come over and just really have a problem with the little boy being here. He would have been taken away, and then he would have been sent to CPS, because we would have been saying this is no position for an 81-year-old to be in, to be trying to take care of a little 2 or 3-year-old. And so he has to go. She's not in a position to do it. But fortunately for us, we didn't have to. And that's why it leads me to say to y'all, I know this story was kind of long and crazy, but be mindful and careful how you treat people. You understand what I'm saying to you? Be mindful and careful how you treat people, because you never know when you're going to need somebody. But when you treat somebody real bad and do something that you know is wrong, karma is going to catch up with you. It might not hit you directly. It might hit your sister, might hit your brother, might hit your child, might hit an uncle or aunt. Somebody might mess up a situation somewhere, but whatever you put out is going to come back. And so I just think it's mighty important that you be mindful and careful of how you treat people. You really should. Okay? So I hope y'all enjoyed my little story for the day. It was kind of long. I didn't expect it to be. But I'm going to see you a little later in the mental house. Bye-bye.